Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Grow Show, and we are late, and we have Google Chrome to thank for that. So today I am joined by a great friend of mine, Renée Giarrusso. So Ren has been an incredible leader in the sales front in the time since I've known her, and has been coaching leaders and executives for many a year now. And I think in the context of growth, I was super keen to get Ren on to discuss, the importance of leadership in any growth agenda. I mean, if I reflect upon my time in startups and startups within corporates, the defining characteristic of each of my experiences has been the leadership that either gave us the reins to do the job we needed to do, or in fact led the team to do that. It's without question the definitive difference between startups I've been in that have really worked and ones that have been cataclysmic failures. So with that, I'll hand over to Renée for a little bit of an intro. And thanks, Kenny. I see you.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott. And I've been super excited for our conversation today. And you're right. I worked out we've been friends for close to 2 decades, probably a little bit more.
Yeah, probably more. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So my team and I, for just on 18 years now, I've been working with leaders and teams all over the world, really helping create limitless leaders, connected teams, and collaborative cultures. And it's something you probably tell really lights me up, is my purpose. And we do that through transformational programs, workshop programs, group and one-on-one coaching, and lots of masterminds and things that get people learning and doing, opposed to having trainers that just show and tell.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, in my experience, I've been in startups, I think, since I was a pup, and without question, it's the behavior and the values that drive a winning team, particularly when you're up against the odds, particularly when you are starting with a clean sheet of paper, you're up against big competitors. Without question, the times that I reflect upon that really were very memorable for me in a favourable way were the ones where we had a leadership team that were just rock solid together. And rock solid on behaviours and expectations within culture, and relentless in the policing of that behaviour and culture. To this extent where, probably my favourite experience, we were pretty brutal on people that didn't fit those sets of behaviours that we required of the team. And that was enforced in a way that you probably couldn't enforce in 2024. But, you basically fit in or fucked off, really. So, but yeah, it's such a critical element. We haven't really had a show that's been focused on leadership per se, and I thought no better person than Renée. And I think one of the things it takes, the guys that I've certainly worked with and for in this space, it's the courage, tenacity, capacity to learn, capacity to listen, capacity to adapt, capacity to be self-effacing. These are the things that make leaders in growth scenarios different and create the difference for that organisation. And I think one of the things about Ren, particularly at this stage, age and stage, or really stage, Renée's been winning and healing through a cancer journey lately, which is I think testimony to Renée and who she is, and why I've always had such great admiration for you, Ren, is that the way you faced into this situation, scenario, and potentially obstacle is the sort of way that you basically, eating your own recipe here when it comes to leadership.
Definitely. Not easy, but I have. And I love what you said about, teams need to be aligned. I think it starts with values. Obviously, the things that are important to people have to be aligned, or there's an incongruence. And look, it's been, it's been a tough 6 months. I'm not going to deny that. I've probably had 99.9% of really good days, and a lot of that we'll talk about is mindset. But I think, I'm happy to share if you want a little bit of story, because
Yeah, absolutely.
shared little glimpses. But I've been running my business 18 years as of February this year, and like many women at my age, we get a mammogram every year, and my beautiful younger sister got diagnosed with cancer about 2 months before COVID, and she's clear now. And not an arrogance, but I don't have a gene that she was diagnosed with. And cut a long story short, I had a clear mammogram in December. And then in January, I was swimming and noticed I had a sore armpit. Still didn't think, the eternal optimist, sometimes my downfall, still didn't think anything of it, and saw a doctor who said it was nothing. And then come March, I was seeing a specialist about something else. And I had this, I've always, Scott, as you know, been an intuitive, had this strong pull, and almost was like a male voice saying, get your arm checked. And the specialist checked it and said, you need to go straight in for an ultrasound. So fast forward 2 weeks or a week and a half, I was diagnosed with breast cancer in my right breast and in my lymph nodes on my right side. Within a week, I started a pretty treacherous 5 months of chemo, full-day chemos, a chemo that most people, well, they said nobody works through, but I did. And I went, I had that feeling at the start, do I tell anyone? Will I lose my business? Will people look at me differently? And I thought, no, you've got to own your journey. And can't really already feel like I'm living a bit of a double life with it. But, I think I've had 6 days off in 6 months. Chemo, I always had 2 days off after that. I had surgery 4 weeks ago, and yay, my pathology's come back clear. And
Awesome.
I started this week. I've just come from radiation. I have radiation every day for a month, and then a 3 weekly treatment till next May. But a lot of people are saying, how have you done this? Even the doctors and that are quite baffled that my energy's been up. And I sort of thought it was normal, and it's not. And I think the key things that have kept me going is leading myself. So leadership starts with self-leadership. If you're watching this or listening to it, you don't need a team to be a leader. I mean, you, Scott, and I see many people that are amazing leaders that don't actually have a team and are better than some leaders do. So I had to think about what's important. I love my work. It lights me up. That's my mantra in life. And I'm a big believer, when you're contributing to others and doing what's your heart purpose, your soul purpose, you can't be in that self-wallowing mindset. It can't exist at the same time.
Yes.
So, I had to get together with my team when I got diagnosed, and it all still feels like it hasn't happened. It's almost been out of bodily. And I just said, we're going to cut out night events, all the communities I'm in, the charity work, the board I'm on, the committee I'm on, all that nice to do stuff has to go. And I've managed to keep, new existing clients going. I will say people's reaction has been very interesting. 90% of clients have been amazing. 10% have been, when my wife had cancer, she couldn't work, so we don't want to work with you. And I fought that initially. And then I was like,
wow,
I'm committed. If you don't believe in that, then that's fine. I will spend my energy where I need to be. And that's worked for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, also that energy is bad for your healing journey as well. I mean, one of the one of the consistent things about any form of suffering is that when you, people will try to relate and people will project. And I think as a leader, it's really important that we're a little Teflon to that stuff. Because there's always a naysayer. There's always people that tell you that you're doing the wrong thing, you're heading the wrong way. Or even the way, I've been, like blown away at how you've picked it up. But actually, you've been extremely vulnerable with your community, extremely vulnerable online about your journey. I think that's really important. I think that is leadership. People respect you when you can actually talk to how you feel. But more importantly, Ren, I think, when there's adversity, people are looking to a leader to crack through. And, to keep going and to keep the lights on, right? And I think there ain't anything wrong with optimism. I think that, both you and I are persistent buggers. And sometimes I think persistence does cross the line of sanity, but anyway, there's an article coming up.
Well, I got a good thing the other day actually from the surgeon. So you probably know optimism's in the top 6 traits of anyone being successful in a role. It's an energy, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always say to clients, have a crappy day, have a shitty day, just don't make it every day, right? And the surgeon said to me, you're an eternal optimist, Renee, but you do not, the next few months, need to be relentlessly optimistic. I thought, something in that. So, when psychologically, when I got told I was clear, you can imagine me, I got my team online, I want to do this and this and fly again and do these night events. And they were just like, we'll do whatever. But, I've still got a way to go. So I'm staying optimistic.
There's an element of peace, though, isn't there, and to sort of temper your expectations of self for a bit, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I think my whole limitless leadership model's about learning, unlearning, relearning, and evolving, never really being an expert. And, I've had to relearn different ways I'm doing my work, a bit like lockdown. 80% of my work's from my studio, and that's fine. And, hey, that's the gift in the pandemic. Everyone knows how to do that and do it well. But relearning boundaries, I'm a giver. So having lots of people, like the support has been absolutely overwhelming that I've had, but being open to receiving that support has only really kicked in about a month ago. People would text and go, we'll bring you some dinner over, and I text back and go, no, I'm sleeping, even though I wasn't. And then I thought, they want to help, and support. It's not about me. So relearning the way we think, doing normal things has been my biggest saviour. Going to get my car serviced a week after I was diagnosed, I had Taylor Swift pumping, sunroof open, 7 in, everyone at the lights was looking at me. I was so excited just to do something normal. And I think, I feel like I've gone beyond resilience. But I think optimism and gratitude underlies everything around getting through adversity. When we're grateful, we focus on what we do have, not what we don't have. I was walking through, I've been here this morning, and you walk past all these homeless people and my mind goes, they could have cancer and don't even know it. How lucky am I to have
absolutely
mentor, medical team, roof over my head and support. So there's always someone worse off than you. And I think
absolutely
being in gratitude makes you optimistic and, not positive. Positivity is in the moment. Optimism is about hope for now and the future. It has longevity. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you talk a lot about energy, and I think that's so critical. I think in the startup experiences I've had, the defining quality was that leadership, but also a great deal of optimistic energy.
Yeah.
Because it's infectious and people catch it.
Yes.
Right? So you can't play in the same way. You can't save yourself to prosperity. You can't beat the stick on your way to winning a goal, right? It's just you've got to find enough inertia in the team to know what motivates them, what gets them up, what gets them excited, and make sure you're celebrating the wins and keeping that energy high.
Yeah, definitely. And energy's not woo-woo like it used to be. Energy is how you show up, or I say don't show up, glow up.
Yeah.
Be 20% above a room as far as your energy goes. And know what lights your people up. Too often, and we've all been there, we do what we're good at, but we don't do what we're good at that we enjoy. And that's the beautiful intersection. And I think as a leader, know what lights your team up in and out of work and satisfy that, manage that, get them to do the stuff they love on a Monday because it sets the tone for the week. If Mary hates reporting, don't delegate reporting to her. Give it to John who loves it and get Mary to help him. So you get here and then everyone, leverages their strengths and rises as a team. And that's sustainable. When you're motivated, you don't leave roles, right?
Yeah, and also, I think when you believe in the value set, there was one particular experience I had, which was, it was pretty full on. I mean, I think if I recall, one day we actually inducted 60 sales reps in Sydney in one day. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
It was nuts. And we went fishing across all sorts of companies for people, including your old company, June. I remember one of your bosses at the time said to me, "Why do you steal my people?" I went, "Why do you train them so well?"
I'm now thinking if you stole any off me.
Probably, no, that water under the bridge, Brent, sure. What we had is a bit of an eclectic mix of people who've come from different cultures, and we had to fuse them together around some common beliefs. And one thing I always remember is that we had a no triangulation rule. And I recall my boss at the time saying, if you're talking to me about Frank and you haven't spoken to Frank about Frank, then you're not actually trying to help Frank. You're actually trying to do harm. And so there was that massive detractor culturally of no gossiping, right? If someone's pissed you off or done the wrong thing, you either front them or you shut your goddamn mouth, right?
Yes.
So, and I think that was it. What was great was not just that we had that rule, but people lived it all the way through all the ranks that we had in management. Everyone lived that rule, right? And we did actually remove people from the business who didn't comply with that. Who didn't.
You got to be upfront, right? Like, and deliver it in a good way. But I always have a little motto: if something's bothering me and I sleep on it and it's still bothering me, address it. And that's a good gauge. Things amplify, and we all know this. We'll think something of someone. Maybe they don't like me, they don't connect with me, and then you awfulize it. Not a real word, one of my made-up words.
Like it.
Yeah, the more you think about it, and then you attract other stuff, and then you end up catching up with this person, and they're like, no, I think you're great. I was just having a really crappy day. So don't let things amplify. I think you've got to get on them and be upfront, be vulnerable. I know that word's a bit overused, but I'm a big believer, be vulnerable and make sure it serves the room. So I've done 4 videos on socials on my journey in 6 months, only 4. And all of them I share something I've learnt that someone else can take on board. And I get that messages going, thank you. That really hit a nerve with me about X or A or whatever. But yeah.
Because a good leader puts their people first. I've seen scenarios where sales leaders I'll never forget, there was one where this particular gentleman, it was in consumer goods, had his direct reports, so the really senior guys in the business were really bad golf nuts. And they'd sponsored the Australian Open and they got this Pro-Am thing as part of a package. And he could have chosen any one of the 4 guys that were absolute golf nuts that worked for him, but instead sent himself. And you're like, wow, your first investment always needs to be in the people that are working for you. Or I like to say with you. That's your first investment. If it's self-interest above that, you're not leading anything. You might be a figurehead, but no one's following you anywhere.
You're managing and not leading. And I even think it's in titles a bit. I'm not that into titles, but to me, account managers should be called account leaders, because if they're managing the status quo. If they're leading, they're doing something, that they haven't done before. So if you're in a leadership role, I always say, look back over the last 12 months. If you disappeared, what have you done that's progressive? What have you done that's legacy? And working on your team and not just in it. But
well, that's a really good point of delineation, and I want to come back to that maybe. But the management leadership piece, I think, In the same way, I tout that in corporate we talk about strategy, but we're actually not talking about strategy. Sometimes we're talking about a plan, but very often we're talking about a wish, right?
That's right.
Because it's not considering all aspects of possibility. So therefore, it's not a strategy. But the same goes with leadership. We say this is a leadership program. This is a blah, blah. But effectively, we've got people going along there who behave like, show up like, and live their lives, professional lives, like managers, not leaders. So I'd like you to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Even a few years ago, I took leadership, the word, out of all of our programs because leadership's the byproduct, right? So if you're communicating, you're connecting, and you're committed, those three things, and you bring in the right enablers and tools, you will have leadership.
Yes.
Not so much now, but in the past, there were some senior lead. We worked from emerging mid-senior to C-suite. Some of the material we were running for C-suite, the middle managers were understanding it even more than they were. And I think what happens is people are good at what they do, they move up, and people just assume that the people piece is a given and that they've got an ability in that. Some people, yes, I get asked all the time, are leaders born? I think some people have an innate ability, but anyone can learn it. It's a choice. Leadership's a choice, not a position. And in the context, I just think, if you're listening to this, are you managing or are you leading? Managing is working in the team, and I liken it to your house. Cleaning your house is a management type task. You've got to do it next week. If you were leading your team, you'd be putting up a pergola. It's progressive. I do a bit with building construction, so I always go to these metaphors. But what are you doing that's not maintenance, that's progressive? And what are you doing to grow yourself? Because the more self-development you're doing for you, however that looks, podcast training, associations, reading, whatever, that links into you doing more of this leadership stuff and less of this operational. Really important.
Yeah.
Really.
It is important, and it's a mindset. Steady state is not what leadership's about. And I don't think, for all intents and purposes, being safe or not taking risk is actually a structural flaw that we have. I always think about the shortness of tenure in executive roles, right?
Yeah.
So if you're in a gig for 2 to 3 years, why would you stick your head out?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why would you stick your head out, right? So in a lot of times people don't, because they don't have a long-term lens and they're not thinking about, the knock-on effects of a decision. Or I would say that we've become, and Mark Civitella and I have got a show, another one next Thursday, where we talk about doing what's right or what's right now. And I think as we continue to live in the now, we continue to leave behind any consequence of our decisions. Or leave behind any inertia behind the passion with which we're trying to embark upon an endeavor, because I'm only here for a little while. Right?
Yeah, right. But it's even companies, and I worked in a very, as you know, very progressive company for 12 years in sales, marketing and leadership roles, and they would move the people management roles around every 18 months, which were at the time people hated. I was quite young. So you're like, why would you move me when I've just got my team perfect? But the idea of that is to keep you on your feet, challenge you, get you out of your comfort zone, get you comfortable being uncomfortable, as I say. But I think, be curious. One of Gift Mindset, it was, which is my third book, is all about unwrapping the gift in challenging people and situations and positive people and situations, but creating a gift mindset culture where you have forums, where you have Win Wednesdays, share your wins, but how you achieve them. Failure Fridays, we call it. What mistake or challenge did you overcome? How did you get through it? And create a safe space so everyone is supporting everyone beyond that. I'm a big believer, I've been in forums where teams have shared, stuff this up, this happened, but I'm working on this. And people go, wow, I was about to do that. So it could be a survival guide for someone else. So I think we need to have forums where we share mistakes, we share challenges, we take risks. And one of the 12 soft skills I think or character traits we build and deepen when we have this gift mindset, so welcome the unwelcome and learn from it, is curiosity. We have 12 gifts and one of them is curiosity. Get your team together and get curious on something. Provocate, observe, have a look at what you can do. Even if it doesn't come to fruition, who cares? The byproduct of creativity is collaboration. Yep. So when companies say, hey, Renée, can you come in and do 2 hours on creating a collaborative culture? I say to them, get your team together and do a brainstorm. I like brain thinking. Brainstorming, one person always talks. Brain thinking, everyone prepares something and comes in, and create a bit of a hackathon and watch the collaboration fly. People's strengths come through. Those that might have had conformity bias that sit there and never speak up might actually voice, their great idea. So bring in curiosity. Some companies have the gift of curiosity as a theme for the month. Yep. And we give them the five strategies, but the number one, and I know, Scott, you'll be all over this, we think in statements, and we usually talk in statements. So, I was with a company a few months back, and they were looking at a certain category and what's sort of trending, and they said, blah, blah does this well. And I said, how could you flip that? And they're like, what are they doing well? And straight away, it opens up your mind. And then we decided, let's not be better than them. Let's be different. I'm not in about one step ahead, because it's just that forever. Be different. And then it's like that,
Well, I think the other thing too is that, look, there is a stunning lack of curiosity in business today as a general blanket rule. Yeah. Again, that lack of desire to stick your head out drives an attachment to convention. Yeah, that doesn't work in this category. That's that's never that's how it is in this category. That's how it is in this business. Yeah. They're things you hear all the time, and they defy logic a lot of the time. But one of the great things I've seen, particularly in fast growth environments, is allowing ideation to come up from below and not only surface it but recognize it. Yeah. I remember years ago, the cynical part of me was thinking there was this guy that worked at Kraft Foods, and he got this award, and the award was for putting salad dressing near the lettuce in X amount of Woolworths stores, right? And of course, the cynic in you, or the analyst in me, is like, wow, what an insight. But for that particular individual, they had to convince those stores to take something from a location to another location, and just that in and of itself will blow the minds of most retail operations people. So it was an achievement for that individual, and it was celebrated. And I think that's really important. And I mean, you could say it's obvious, but actually to get that done on the ground in the day was not that easy. Yeah.
Well, you're changing mindset. You're changing, will we sell more if we move it, and all the work that goes through with ticketing. But I think, you're spot on. Letting, Toyota, do it very well. I did work with them years ago with the Ford part of the business, and some of the ideas that they would talk about, I'd go, that's awesome. Where's that come from? And they'd be like, our teams. And they have these sort of hackathons. And I think it's, I don't know if you know this, but all of us make decisions and come up with ideas based on the past, the present, or the future. We have a preference. I'm future, so I have to actually stop when I come up with an idea and go, is there anything from the past that I could, use, and how will it affect the present? So I think even if you're listening, what's worked in the past, how's it going to affect us now? What would it look like for the future? You get this balanced ideation and decision making, which takes.
Yeah, and I also want to say that there are times where everyone, particularly in a bigger organisation, has blind spots about what works, what doesn't work. You know, I know running national retail accounts, I used to have people in the field going, why can't you do this? And it's like, well, you don't understand how it rolls, right? But having said that, those suggestions are good learning opportunities for those people.
They are.
So it's like, listen, I think that's a great idea, and I understand exactly what you got there. Can we spend 15 minutes so I can explain to you why that's going to be challenging for me to do, or why that's challenging for that customer, or why that's difficult to execute, or not profitable, or whatever the case may be. And that's an opportunity for someone to grow. So rather than dismissing ideas, we use them as learning opportunities for the development of those people. And we are, the byproduct of that, encouraging more ideas from those people.
I love it. And I'm looking at your title on your thing today, Mr. Why. I love that, because we are a what economy, I believe, in Australia, even in Sweden. About the what, how can we be more of a how economy and stop looking at everything as one dimensional? And even recognition, you know, I call it recognition, gratitude, praise, whatever you want to call it. A lot of companies do what I call grey gratitude, where they go, hey, Scott, well done on that. And that's it. There's no replication of success for you to share that with others. So set up those platforms. And, you know, it's in the top 5 reasons people are still leaving organisations, especially the Gen Zs, not being recognised. And, you know, I get some people go, we've got no budgets. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be monetary. It could be simply, I know years ago, Apple used to give, you know, when people hit KPIs, half a day off a month to go and work in another division in Apple and actually together on something. All these amazing apps came out. People were getting succession planning because they went, oh, I actually liked working with Scott yesterday. It's smart. So just think about different ways of recognition. Yeah,
that's so critical. I think that you know, when it comes to, there is some great ideation that comes from further down the chain. I think most of us who sit in executive roles or whatever do miss the details. And in fact, it's always surprised me, as you know, I've done growth strategy for countless number of companies, but one of the things that surprises me is that on many occasions, a CEO who's engaged me has said to me, what do you mean you want to spend the first week in the field?
That's
and I do all the time, right? All the time. And they you want to drive around with the reps? I can tell you what the problem is. And I said, well, I always say, well, with due respect, I'm pretty sure I'm going to find some nuance to the problems when I go out there, right? But in many cases, those people won't have been out in the field with their own people. So it's, you know, and yes, you've got to have the filter on, because, you know, Jimmy, the sales reps, he knows exactly how to run the company. That happens all the time. If you can filter through all that, there is often gold in them their hills, and it's worth doing. But a lot of people are like, well, we know. Well, no, you don't actually. Most of the time you don't, right? So I think, and therefore encouraging that feedback and input from people is so critical, but
and
so
even
good for their learning.
You knew I'd have to touch on coaching. So I've had a coach and been coaching since I was 24 years old, so I'm over double that now. And, you know, as a youngster, I thought coaching was remedial. Why do I need a coach? I'm good at my job. Coaching now, every leader should be coaching and building a coach-centric culture, and it has to start at the top. Years ago, I came in and taught all these people coaching skills at mid-level. It's got to start here so that as people go through, and, you know, it could be a coaching conversation, coaching on the fly. It could be, you know, I know back at, you know, Mars days where I used to work, and a lot of companies I work in, good practice is 1 hour a month with each of your team, and get them to bring the focus that they want to, you know, opportunity, challenge, or whatever. Something I think you might like, Scott, that I've instilled in quite a few companies is what's called stay interviews. So we've all heard of exit interviews when it's too late. And to be honest, I don't think a lot is done with exit interview information. No. But a stay interview is where you catch up with each of your team once a quarter, and you ask them, what's keeping you here? What are you loving? What's stretching you? What's annoying?
I love that.
And, you know, I'm happy to do a link. I wrote a whole piece on this with the questions.
Yeah, great.
But make sure you do it with everybody, because I had a leader do it with all his team except his high performer. And I said, why? Oh, he's a high performer. And I said, the high performers are the ones that need attention because they're often left.
Mm-hmm.
When he did these interview questions, the high performer was about to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So that saved him leaving. And we all know the cost, the energy, the time, the headspace of getting someone new on. So bring in stay interviews, and, you know, I can give you the questions, but just open questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you're right. I mean, we do tend to address problems being, you know, emergent or apparent. We tend to focus on that and go, no, Jimmy's great. He's firing on all cylinders. But the truth of the matter is, you never know whether, you know, I know that in my business, you know, I talk about, you know, growth strategy and all that sort of stuff. What I never talk about is dollars.
Yeah.
I never talk about how much revenue I've generated. And I've had other people talk about, you know, quantums of revenue. And I'm like, not really, because I know that if I, in a small business, am able to move the needle a couple of $1 million, it could be really bloody hard to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Or I could trip over an electrical wire at Coca-Cola and create $15 million. Like it's, you know, it's
a behavioural shift.
Yeah, I mean, your environment doesn't, and the quantum doesn't matter. It's the challenge that matters.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are very difficult things to do. I mean, one of the things I'm proudest of in my career is convincing Coca-Cola to partner with Kettle Chips way back when.
Yeah.
And it took me about 5 months of persistence. But why that was important is that Coke, for very good reason, value their reputation.
Yes.
We were a tiny, infinitesimally small brand when we started conversations. And for us to have a good commercial working partnership with them was a big achievement, but it took a lot. It took a lot because we weren't the star of the show in the potato chip game. And, you know, we had to give them plenty of good reason. And you know, was the effort worth it? Yeah, damn straight. I think that partnership was a big driver of our explosive growth with that in the first 20 odd months.
Amazing.
But I'll also say that, you know, it wasn't the outcome either that I measure it on. It was the difficulty.
Yeah.
Right?
Problems.
Yeah. It was getting through that and getting that to happen. And yes, it did produce ridiculous quantums, but you know, such that my forecasting guys were caught with their pants down a few times going, we didn't think you'd sell that much. So, but, you know, really what I reflect on is how much effort, persistence and work went into that partnership to get that to happen, given our position. So, you know, it isn't measured by dollars. It's measured by degrees of difficulty, effort, consistency, and so on and so forth, right? So
and the mindsets to get it done. And I think, I agree. I mean, when I used to do sales training, we could say, oh, we've achieved a 20% lift. Now I do a lot of human behavioral stuff, right? So EQ, comms, mapping.
Absolutely.
And sometimes clients go, how do we measure this? Yeah, we do before and afters, but the key is embedding it back on the job and bringing it to life and having a plan of that. And I'm writing a piece at the moment around, one of the quotes I put in is, culture is how your team feel about Monday on a Sunday night. What's their heart telling them? How is their stomach feeling? Because, you know, Sunday night dreads is still a thing. I see it with friends that have jobs they don't like, and I'm always excited for Monday, so they just always look at me like I'm weird. But, you know, having a role that lets you step into your power and not do what's good, but do what's great. And I think a leader's job is to help drive that. But for every executive listening, you've got to drive that up as well. You know, your adults got to drive it as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Ren, I reckon we could do another show or two myself, but given that we're that familiar with each other, it's not that hard, is it really? But
no, it's not. I'd love to talk to you next time just about 5D energy and some work we've been doing on that as well. So
yeah, can we do that? Can we actually dedicate a session? Because I do think, and as I was pointing out earlier, I do think that's a big quality that I found in leaders that was so important. That, you know, they'd come in with a burst of energy, smiling from ear to ear, encouraging people. I mean, it made every goddamn lick of difference to how everyone felt about what they were doing.
Totally. And it has to be real. You know, America and Australia are sometimes looked at as the Pollyanna countries, and I've done a lot of work with Victor Purton, who's the CEO of the Centre of Optimism, and be real about it, but just find something to be grateful for and focus on that, and your energy will go up and it's real. It's congruent. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, and little bits of recognition, like in the Arnott's journey. I had a leader who was he was particularly, I'd say, intuitively good at it, and we had this biblical. I guess it was a spreadsheet really of how we performed yesterday and what we were trying to do in our forecast and blah blah blah. And just little things like our national sales coordinator, he went by the name of DD. And the tracker was called DD Track because she maintained it. And it was just kind of recognizing DD's central role to the team, the fact that she had a finger on the pulse about what was going on everywhere. And that instrument was called DD Track was really a small thing, right? A small thing.
It goes, you know, it goes such a long way. Yeah. I think you know, if you've got teams out there, make sure that there's recognition and feedback regularly, but, you know, really not just a pat on the back. You know, you might say so. And people that don't like feedback publicly, there's a lot of them. I used to be that person. So you might go, hey, well done, Scott. Do you want to share how you actually did that? And then everyone's learning and you don't feel like the spotlight's on you because you're serving the room. It's a really good strategy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Love it. Can have many a conversation. What do I say? Enjoy the radiation, Ren, or just, you know, I mean, holiday in Cambodia, anyone? Yeah.
Man, I like to radiate, but not in a radiation room. That just came out. But it is a very unusual experience. It's a lot of getting you on the bed and organised, and then it's only 7 minutes. But it starts to accumulate, the pain. So I've got to get through the next 3 weeks. But I'm just really focusing. The first one I went in and I'm like, why do I have to do this? I'm clear. And then from there I went, that's not going to serve me. Now I go in and I actually imagine it's obliterating anything that might be left. And I come out feeling like I've achieved something. So whether it's true or not, it's all about mindset.
It is. It really is. It really is. Well, thank you, Renee, for joining. I know most people call you Nay, but for whatever reason, I call you Ren.
I get Ren. No, I get Ren a lot too, as long as you're not referring to Ren and Stimpy. But
I was going to buy you the T-shirt, but I was going to make Stimpy look like me. But I'd love to have you back on, obviously, and wish you all the best. Of course, you and I will personally be in touch.
Thanks,
through
God,
that period of time.
The amazing work you're doing, and thanks for having me on the show today.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody. And just another reminder, next Thursday at 10 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, Mr. Mark Civitella is joining me for another show of Right versus Right Now. Thanks again, and thanks again to Renee. Cheers.
Thank you.